I think you said something like everything is part of the universal before. And I think you said we have to accept that, then believe it, then realize it. But to accept it, don't we have to know what it means that everything is part of the universal?
You said to accept it?
I thought that was what you had said. You gave 3 stages.
Yes, first we are open to the possibility that everything is universal. And number 2, we understand that everything is universal, or we have understood that everything is universal. And number 3, we experience that everything is universal.
Now, to be open to the possibility, don't we have to know what everything is universal means?
Yeah, everything is universal means nothing is personal. Nothing personal. You know, like...
I'm still not...
New Jersey people understand me. Nothing personal. No, nothing is personal. That's what it means.
I don't know what it means, nothing is personal.
It means there is... It means separation is not real. Nothing is... There is no separate entity in the cosmos. If you prefer, what it ultimately means, and that's the most important, is that which is hearing these words in this moment is not a separate individual, but is a universal consciousness. That's for all practical purposes what it boils down to. And most of us, we are not ready to accept this possibility that which is hearing these words in this moment is not separate, personal, mortal. So we have first be ready to accept this possibility, then to understand that it is true, and then to live, experience, feel, perceive that it is true at every moment. But these are the 3 stages I was referring to.
Now I understand. Accept the possibility there's a universal consciousness.
Yeah. As long, because the way it goes is that we believe that because of the culture we live in, we believe that there is strong evidence that consciousness is separate, that it is personal. We feel that it is an outlandish type of concept to claim that it is universal. Because most people believe otherwise, you see. And so the first step is to find out, what is it that where is the evidence that substantiates our belief that consciousness is separate? And what is the value of that evidence? And it is not until we have investigated this evidence and recognized that although before the investigation we believed that we had strong evidence, after the investigation it turns out that the evidence was bogus. Then we are open. You see, this being open to the possibility requires an investigation.
So the evidence is that each person seems to experience their own incidents.
We believe that that which in us perceives, because that which we call I or me is really that which perceives. You see? It is that which perceives, that which thinks, that which decides, that which acts as a result of those decisions. That's what we call I. But basically, this I, first of all, is that which perceives. The rest comes after. You see, the decider, the doer, the perceiver comes first. Because in order to have a decision or to have an action, I need to perceive them, right? So what I am is truly the perceiver, which means the consciousness. What I define as whatever it is, which is perceiving these words in this moment, in this very moment. And that's what we call I. Of course, we say I perceive, right? And so we believe that to be... We believe, for instance, that it is a different perceiver in each body, yeah, or in each mind, you see? So we could ask ourselves, for instance, to start as a starting point, what evidence do we have that there are as many consciousnesses as there are minds, or as there are bodies, or body minds?
The evidence is that each person doesn't perceive what all the other individuals seem to be perceiving.
Well, let's take the analogy of a tower, a circular tower, with all kinds of windows looking at a landscape. Each window, the landscape that appears in each window is different. Does the fact that the 6 landscapes that appear in the 6 windows are different imply that there are 6 observers in the tower?
Yeah. The landscape is
well,
what it
if
is.
there is room for only one observer in the tower,
if there's only one observer, there's only one set of observations.
what I'm saying is does the manyness of the window imply the manyness of the observers?
Excuse me? Oh, the multiplicity of windows.
Does the multiplicity of the windows of windows implies the multiplicity of observers? No.
No.
Right. So in this metaphor, each mind or each body mind is a window, and consciousness is the observer. The fact that that which is observed in various windows differs from one window to another doesn't imply that that which observes differs from one window to another. That is preposterous. You know, there is a logical quantum leap there that is being made.
So you're saying there's one observer seeing from many standpoints.
No, I'm not, for the time being, I'm not making the statement that there is one observer, because that also, let's say for the time being, we are not busy with that. We are busy trying to evaluate the validity of the evidence in support of the multiple observers theory. We are trying to see whether, when we feel that we have evidence that there are many consciousnesses, whether we have facts to back it up. And you said, okay, the fact that this mind and that mind have different contents implies that there are two consciousnesses.
Okay, I retract that.
No, I'm not. I'm not trying to argue. I mean, we make a very simplistic assumptions, but when we take a closer look, it's because in our culture we don't investigate that. You see, we have not been trained. We have zero interest in investigating that. There are no courses in consciousness. There are no courses in what am I, in primary school, in high school, in kindergarten, or in college. I've never seen a what am I course. Which means that there is zero interest for that. In other words, all the interest goes towards that which is perceived, but there is zero interest in investigating that which perceives. So because of this lack of interest, there is a lack of knowledge that goes with it. And there are all kinds of childish and simplistic assumptions. So I stick to my guns.
Well, that makes sense. There can be one consciousness with multiple perceivers.
You see, and it gives me, of course, I'm going beyond the scope of your question. It gives me this metaphor of the tower with the windows enables us also to understand some other aspects of our experience. If in these towers, if you take two windows which are opposite, the landscapes that you can observe are totally different. In other words, whatever is observed in one of these two windows is absent from the other window, and conversely. Yes. Right? Like if we are here in Temecula and somebody else is in New York and we are not communicating via phone or Skype or whatever, what appears in their window and what appears in our window here, nothing is in common, right? Whereas if we stand both in the same room, and we look at this camera, for instance, although we see it from a slightly different angle, we both see correlated images. Just as if you look from two adjacent windows in this tower, to adjacent windows, the landscape that you see through these two windows is going to be slightly different because you look at it from a different angle, but there will be still a consistency between the two images. We have things in common. You see? So it's a way, usually metaphors, you cannot push them too far, but this one, we could push it one step further, so I took the opportunity to do it. So that's the first, going back to your question, the first thing is to investigate thoroughly whatever evidence comes up in support of the multiple consciousnesses theory. And to realize, to convince oneself that there is zero evidence, in fact. Then the evidence that come up can be arguments, concepts, like the one you mentioned. There are several consciousnesses because, but there are also other types of candidates for evidence, which are more irrational, but they are feeling in the body, and that could come up in the form of, well, theoretically speaking, that's well said, and I agree, but at the gut feeling level, that's not true. You see, so then we also have to investigate the validity of the gut feeling level evidence. You see? And at some point, we are convinced also that the so-called gut feeling level evidence is also bogus. And then we are left in a situation where we don't know, you see? But then we are open. That's a big difference. We are completely open. When I don't know, I am open to all possibilities.
Certainly there is a possibility there is a single consciousness.
And then there is a moment when we see it. And that's what I call the moment of understanding, because the moment of... it's an insight. In the beginning, this insight takes place in a timeless moment, in a split second, in a timeless moment. But then, in this split second, we move beyond not knowing. Before we are in not knowing, we say, okay, it's possible. But then there is a kind of reversal of perspective that takes place, a shift that takes place. And then after that, we say, oh, that's the other way around. It has always been the other way around, you see. Now, once that has taken place, that's what I call the understanding or the glimpse. That's really the entry on the path. Before, we are on the path to the path, on our way to the path, but we are not on the path. Then we enter really the path as we let go of the belief that we are a separate entity, and we let go of the belief that we are a separate entity the moment we have an insight of what we truly are, which is something which is universal. Universal is a word that doesn't refer to this physical universe, but universal is bigger than that. Whatever there is in all realms, the totality. And at that point, of course, deep inside, a shift has taken place in us, which is irreversible. But all the consequences of this shift have not yet trickled down to all realms of our experience. So the path is this trickling down of this understanding, which was just in a split moment, in a split second, and to allow for this understanding to transform everything in our life. In other words, to cooperate with this understanding, to allow for this understanding to change, to transform the way we live. And in order to transform the way we live, we have to allow for it first to transform the way we think, the way we perceive the world, and the way we feel the body. As a result of that, it will also change the way we act in the world and the way we relate to the world, and that's all. This final stage, if you will, is a process of stabilization of our experience to reach a true equanimity. And by the way, equanimity doesn't mean that, in my book, it doesn't mean necessarily that we don't get angry or upset, because there might be things that are worth getting upset for. But it means that there is no distinction. Equanimity means there is no distinction between self and non-self. There is no distinction between inside and outside. It's all equal. And it is this absence of distinction between the inside and outside that, as a result, also changes our behavior and the way we relate to our surroundings and to the people we interact with.